Aphra Behn, Life and Works. Summary of the Forced Marriage or the Jealous Bridegroom. Hello and welcome to the discourse. Aphra Behn was an English playwright, poet and translator during the Restoration period. She was the first English woman who earned her living by her writing. She was born on 14 December 1640 and died on 16 April 1689. A few of her most famous and successful playwrights include The Forced Marriage or The Jealous Bridegroom, which was first performed in 1670 at Lincoln's Inn Field, and The Rover or The Banish'd Cavaliers, which was performed in 1677. Apart from that, she was a successful prose writer too, and her most famous work is the prose-fiction Oroonoko or The Royal Slave, which is also called an early novel. Aphra Ben was married to John Behn in 1664, but her husband died in 1665. She was a devoted supporter of King Charles II, who appointed her as a political spy in 1665 during the Second Anglo-Dutch War. She was recruited as a political spy of England in Antwerp, where her main job was to develop intimacy with William Scott, who was the son of regicide Thomas Scott. Thomas Scott was executed in 1660. William Scott was supposed to be a member of the exiled group that was plotting against King Charles II. She was assigned a code name Astrea as a spy that she continued to use as a playwright after her return. In Antwerp, she succeeded in maintaining intimacies with William Scott and tried to make him a double agent. However, William Scott ditched her with the Dutch forces. She somehow saved herself but failed to get any monetary support from England, and as a result, it became difficult for her to return to London. She took some debt to return to London that she couldn't pay back, and in the end was imprisoned in a debtor's prison. During her stay in the debtor's prison, she realized that she needed to have a profitable vocation to earn money. She was already writing poetry and decided to write plays under the pseudonym Astrea. English poet Lady Elizabeth Cary had already published her play The Tragedy of Miriam in 1913. Catherine Phillips, also known as the Matchless Orinda, published her translation of Comelles Pompey in 1663, which was performed in Dublin and London. Aphra Ben was the first female writer who wrote to earn a living. Women had been excluded from performing on the public stage before the English Civil War, but in the Restoration period, professional actresses played the women's parts. Aphra Ben enthusiastically started writing dramas. King Charles II supported the English theatres against the prevailing Puritan ethics. King Charles II openly supported some of the playwrights, including libertine John Wilmot, Earl of Rochester, George Etheridge, and others. Aphra Ben soon got included in the same coterie of John Wilmot. Her first play was The Forced Marriage, in which she attacked the tradition of arranged marriages. The play became a huge success. Her second play, The Amorous Prince, was also successful. However, when her third play, The Dutch Lover, premiered in 1673, which was a comedy, critics sabotaged the play while attacking the writer for being a woman. Aphra Ben faced the critics strongly and answered them in epistle to the readers, in which she commented that women had been held back by their unjust exclusion from education, not their lack of ability. However, her argument was overlooked because of her close relationships with the libertine Earl of Rochester and lawyer John Hoyle, who was a bisexual. The Dutch Lover failed and Ben took a break from her writing career for 3 years. In 1676, she published 3 comedies, Abdileger, The Town Fop, and The Rover. The Rover became a huge hit. It was based on Thomas Killigrew's play Thomaso or the Wanderer. John Dryden reviewed The Rover by Aphra Ben and commented that it lacks the manly vitality of Killigrew's play but shows a greater refinement of expression. During the early 1680s, England faced the exclusion crisis and London got divided into 2 political factions, Tories and Whigs. Aphra Ben supported the Tories against the Whigs, and in 1681-82 she produced 5 plays showing her opposition to the Whigs. She used to openly attack the Whigs in her writing. In 1682, she wrote the prologue and epilogue of an anonymous play, Romulus and Hercilla, in which she criticized James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth, who was the illegitimate son of King Charles II. As a result, an arrest warrant was issued against her. James II succeeded King Charles II in 1685, and the popularity of her plays began receding. Her plays faced strong criticism for sexually explicit subjects and dialogues. It was a period when women were not supposed to sell their pens to earn income and were often compared with prostitutes. Among her critics of the 18th century, William Wycherley and Alexander Pope were prominent. Alexander Pope pointed out the excessive erotic descriptions in Aphra Behn's works and commented, "The stage how loosely does Astrea tread, who fairly puts all characters to bed." Most of her work was marginalized and disregarded by critics for more than 200 years, though many others supported and cherished her work too. In 1745, Jean-Jacques Rousseau mentioned the French translation of her novel Oroonoko, or The Royal Slave, in his Discourses of Inequality. In 1929, Virginia Woolf mentioned Aphra Behn in her essay In a Room of One's Own, commented, "All women together ought to let flowers fall upon the grave of Aphra Behn, for it was she who earned them the right to speak their minds." Behn proved that money could be made by writing at the sacrifice, perhaps, of certain agreeable qualities, and so, by degrees, writing became not merely a sign of folly and a distracted mind, but was of practical importance. Summary of the Forced Marriage. The subtitle of the Forced Marriage is The Jealous Bridegroom. It was the first play by Aphra Behn, which was first staged in 1670. It is a 5-act play in which Aphra Behn attacked the tradition of arranged marriages. The play begins with a prologue in which an actress appears on the stage and acknowledges that the play is written by a woman and appeals the audience to give the play a good reception. The play contains many love triangles, the primary of whom is that of Prince Philander, his friend turned foe Alcippus, and Armenia, the daughter of the former general of France. Prince Philander and Armenia are in love and want to marry each other. However, her father, General Orgulius, isn't convinced that the king will accept his daughter's marriage to the Dauphin of France. In a recent battle, Philander, Alcippus, and Orgulius fought together. While all of them fought bravely, Alcippus made a name of his valor on the battlefield. The king decides to award Alcippus for his bravery and announces that he will be the new general of his army, as Orgulius has asked for retirement. Alcippus is surprised by this decision but accepts the responsibility and asks for Orgulius' daughter Arminia's hand in marriage. Alcippus and the king are unaware of the love between Philander and Armenia. The king announces the marriage of Alcippus with Armenia, and her father doesn't object to it. This saddens Philander and his sister Galatea, who wishes to marry Alcippus. Pissarro, a friend of Alcippus, mollifies Philander and his friends against Alcippus and says that Alcippus didn't know that Philander loved Armenia. He further says that Armenia doesn't return his love and thus their marriage can be stopped. At home, Armenia cries and objects to her father and claims that she only loved Philander. She says that she has always seen Alcippus as her brother and she cannot marry him. Orgulius says that she should accept marriage with Alcippus as her duty, as the king has offered her to Alcippus as his wife. Armenia meets Galatea, who is her friend, and Galatea soothes her and says that she is equally sad as she loves Alcippus. She says that she has the plan to avoid Armenia's marriage with Alcippus. Philander tells to his friends that he is going to discuss the matter with the king to stop the marriage of Armenia with Alcippus, and if that doesn't solve the issue, he will settle the matter with sword. However, neither his nor Galatea's efforts prove fruitful, and Armenia is married to Alcippus. On their wedding night, Armenia strongly repulses Alcippus and says that though she is married to him, she will not share the bed with him because she loves Philander. Alcippus gets angry but resists violence and says that his love will win her over with time. Meanwhile, Pizarro, the friend of Alcippus, watches the wedding ceremony with keen eyes to avoid any mishap and observes that Galatea is in love with Alcippus and she is saddened by his marriage to Herminia. This breaks his heart as he wishes to marry Galatea. Philander and his friends decide to attack Alcippus and abduct Herminia. However, Pizarro and Alcippus are alert. Philander reaches Herminia's chamber and sees her in her nightgown. She asks Philander about Alcippus and she is worried about him. Philander accuses her of betrayal in love, to which she claims that she is truthful to him and hasn't allowed Alcippus to share her bed. Alcippus returns to Herminia's room at the same time and accuses Herminia of adultery. This enrages Philander and both start fighting. Philander gets wounded and Alcippus takes Herminia away. Pizarro informs Alcippus that Philander attacked them because Alcippus hints to him about his suspicion of Herminia, but Pizarro says that he doesn't believe that Herminia has done anything wrong till now. He further informs him that Princess Galatea is in love with him and she is also sad about his marriage with Herminia. Alcippus is surprised by this. He fails to understand the situation and asks Pizarro what should he do. Pizarro says that Alcippus should leave Herminia and embrace the love of Galatea, as that will also offer him the right to inherit half the kingdom. Meanwhile, Herminia is shifted to Galatea's camp for protection. Galatea tells her that Philander loves her and she should submit to him. But Herminia says that she is married to Alcippus and cannot be disloyal to him. Galatea says that she will arrange for a proper solution. Alcippus enters her camp at the same time and accuses Galatea of turning Herminia as cruel as she is. Galatea denies the charge and subtly signs Herminia to soften her attitude towards Alcippus. Alcippus notices the change and apologizes to Galatea. She leaves Alcippus and Herminia alone and Herminia weeps at her situation in front of Alcippus. Alcippus thinks that this is a chance for him to win her love, but she clearly states that she always considered him a friend, a brother, and that when they meet again, it must be as friends, not lovers. Philander meets Galatea and asks her to let him meet Herminia. Galatea tries to stop him, but he insists and she lets him in. Herminia is surprised at seeing Philander. He says that he is too sick and just wished to see her. Herminia takes him to the inner room so that he may rest. Meanwhile, Alcippus tells Pizarro that he is disheartened because of Herminia, as she will never love him. He says that he will return to Herminia's camp to talk to her again. When Herminia sees Alcippus again, she gets worried because of the presence of Philander in the inner room. Alcippus notices the sword and hat of Philander and accuses Herminia of treachery. Philander comes out at the same time and takes his sword in his hand. Before Alcippus and Philander could attack each other, Herminia comes in between and tells Philander to go away. Philander leaves and Alcippus accuses Herminia of adultery and strangles her. Herminia gets unconscious and Alcippus throws her on her bed, believing he killed her. The servants notice it and spread the news of Herminia's murder. Galatea is surprised by the news, while Orgullius meets the king and demands revenge against Alcippus. Galatea announces that if they harm Alcippus, she will commit suicide because she loves him. King is surprised by all this, and when he comes to know that Philander and Herminia were in love, while Galatea loved Alcippus, he regrets his decision. Meanwhile, Galatea visits her camp to examine Herminia's death and finds her unconscious. She treats her and gets her back to consciousness. However, she tells her to hide the fact that she is alive. Herminia agrees to her plan. Herminia then disguises herself as a soul and visits Alcippus, making him regret his decision. She says that she was always pure and never indulged in adultery, though she always loved Philander and always considered Alcippus as his friend and a brother. She also makes him regret Galatea, who actually loved him. At the time of her supposed funeral, Alcippus reaches her coffin when there is no one else and starts weeping for killing Herminia. Philander reaches at the same time and attacks Alcippus for murdering his love. As both men engage in a fight, Galatea approaches them and reprimands them. She mentions that both were close friends and fighting for each other just a few days ago, and now they are sworn enemies. Philander complains about the death of Herminia, to which Galatea says that Herminia is alive. Soon Herminia arrives there along with the king and Orgullius. The king nullifies Herminia's marriage to Alcippus and offers Galatea's hand to Alcippus. Philander asks Orgullius for his daughter's hand in marriage, and Orgullius accepts the proposal. The king makes a final speech in which he wishes the new couple long and happy lives. The play ends with an epilogue in which an actress speaks self-deprecatingly on behalf of her sex, admitting the superiority of men as far as wit is concerned and saying that women can conquer only through their beauty. So this is it for today. We will continue to discuss the history of English literature. Please stay connected with the discourse. Thanks and regards.